because the wind coming off the East River had a way of turning cold food into punishment. She was 70 years old. She was wearing a thin cotton house dress, the same one she had worn yesterday and the day before, and a pair of house slippers that were not meant for outside. Her arms were bare. Her fingers were stiff. Her breath came out in small white clouds that disappeared before they reached the railing. Through the kitchen window behind her, warm light, and the smell of garlic butter and seared meat, the sound of a woman laughing, and on the dining table, visible through the glass, a 42-ounce porterhouse steak, medium rare, on a ceramic plate, roasted asparagus, truffle mashed potatoes, a glass of red wine, a cloth napkin. That plate was for the wife. The paper plate on the porch step, the one with a fistful of cold rice and nothing else, was for the mother. Same house, same night, same son serving both. His name was Kwabena Frimpong, and in exactly 6 days, 12 black SUVs would line up on his street in Astoria, Queens, bumper to bumper, engine to engine, and the woman eating cold rice on his back porch would climb into the first one and never come back. But before that happened, before the SUVs, before the truth, before Kwabena's knees hit the pavement in front of his entire neighborhood, you need to understand how a man feeds his own mother scraps in the cold while his wife eats steak 10 feet away. And you need to understand who that mother really is. If you're already feeling something, if your chest is tight and your jaw is clenched, good. Hold on to that. Because this story is about to take you somewhere that will test everything you believe about forgiveness. And if you want to see how it ends, subscribe right now and hit that notification bell. Because fate has been watching this house in Queens for 9 months, and it is done waiting. Mama Adjoa, that's what everyone called her, though her full name was Adjoa Nyarko Frimpong, arrived in New York on a Tuesday in April 2025. She flew from Accra to JFK on a 14-hour flight in economy class. She didn't sleep, not because the seats were uncomfortable, though they were, but because she hadn't seen her son in 7 years, and the anticipation was louder than the engine noise. 7 years. The last time she had seen Kwabena, he was 27 years old, standing at the departure gate at Kotoka International Airport with a one-way ticket to New York and a duffel bag that held everything he owned. She had pressed $200 into his hand, money she had saved over 9 months by eating 1 meal a day instead of 2. She had cupped his face and said, "Go, build, and when you are ready, come back for me." He had cried. She had not. She never cried in front of him. She saved her tears for the taxi ride home, a 20-minute ride during which the driver had the good sense to say nothing. Kwabena was her only child. His father, a man named Yaw Frimpong, had died when Kwabena was 11. Heart attack. Dropped dead on the floor of the printing shop where he worked in Osu. One moment he was loading paper into a machine. The next moment he was on the ground. The moment after that, Adjoa was a widow at 31 with a son who needed school fees and a world that had no safety net. She worked. That was her answer to everything. She worked at a fabric shop in Makola Market from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening. She took in sewing at night, alterations, repairs, custom dresses for weddings and funerals. She slept 4 hours a night for 15 years. She sent Kwabena to a good secondary school. She sent him to the University of Ghana. She paid for everything with her hands. And when he graduated, when he told her he wanted to go to America, that a friend from university had a cousin in Queens who could help him find work, she didn't argue. She didn't beg him to stay. She pressed $200 into his hand and sent him out the door. Because that's what mothers do. They build their children strong enough to leave, and then they let them. For 7 years, Kwabena called every Sunday, without fail. Sometimes the calls were 10 minutes. Sometimes they were an hour. He told her about New York, the cold, the noise, the subway, the speed of everything. He told her about his jobs, first a dishwasher at a restaurant in Jackson Heights, then a line cook, then an assistant manager. And he told her about the apartment he shared with 4 other Ghanaian men in a 2-bedroom in Corona. He told her about the snow, how it looked beautiful for one day and then turned to gray slush that soaked through your shoes. He sent money every month. $200 at first, then $300, then $500. By 2020, he was sending $800 a month, enough for Adjoa to stop working at the fabric shop. She didn't stop. She reduced her hours. She was 63 years old, and her back ached, and her eyes were failing. But she still went to Makola 3 days a week because work was the only language she had ever been fluent in. In 2022, Kwabena told her about a woman. "Her name is Crystal," he said on a Sunday call. "Crystal Morgan. She's American. She's a real estate agent. She's beautiful. Ay, mama." Adjoa listened. She asked questions. "Where is she from?" "Brooklyn." "What does her family do?" "Her mother is a nurse. Her father is not in the picture." "How long have you known her?" 8 months. "Do you love her, Kwabena?" A pause. Then, "Yes, mama, I do." "Then bring her to me. Let me see her face." He didn't bring her. He couldn't afford 2 tickets. Instead, he sent photos. Crystal was 28, tall, light-skinned, long braided hair, perfect teeth. In every photo, she was dressed like the photos themselves cost money. Designer bags, heels, outfits that looked more expensive than Adjoa's monthly rent. Adjoa studied the photos the way she studied fabric, looking for the weave, the thread count, the places where the pattern didn't line up. She said nothing. They married in September 2023, a courthouse wedding in Manhattan. Kwabena sent Adjoa a video. She watched it 7 times. She saw her son in a blue suit, smiling wider than she had ever seen him smile. She saw Crystal in a white designer dress that probably cost more than the entire wedding. She saw a small room with fluorescent lights and a judge who looked bored. She did not see herself, because she was not there, because nobody had bought her a ticket. "We'll bring you soon, Mama," Kwabena said on the next Sunday call. "Crystal wants to get settled first. She says the apartment is too small. She wants to find a bigger place. Then we'll bring you." Adjoa said, "Of course, my son. Take your time." She waited. 2022, 2023, 2024. Each year, a new reason. The apartment, the neighborhood, Crystal's career, the cost of the visa. The timing wasn't right. Next year, always next year. And the monthly money kept coming. It went up, $1,000, then $1,200. Kwabena was doing well. He had been promoted to general manager of a restaurant group in Queens. 3 locations, 70 employees. He was making real money for the first time in his life. And Crystal was spending it. Adjoa didn't know the details, but she could hear it in Kwabena's voice. The Sunday calls got shorter. His tone got tighter. He sounded like a man carrying something heavy that he couldn't set down. When Adjoa asked, "How is Crystal?" the answer was always the same. "She's fine, Mama. She's busy." The word busy, doing the work of 100 words, he wouldn't say. In January 2025, Adjoa made a decision. She didn't tell Kwabena. She called a travel agent in Accra. She booked her own ticket. She applied for her own visa, a visitor's visa, and B2, sponsored by her son's address in Astoria. The embassy approved it in 3 weeks. She packed 1 suitcase. She told her neighbor, Mrs. Owusu Mensah, to water her plants, and she flew to New York. Kwabena picked her up at JFK. He was 34 now, taller than she remembered, or maybe she had gotten shorter. He had a beard. He wore a nice coat. He drove a black Audi. When she climbed into the passenger seat and smelled the leather, she thought, "My son has done well." He hugged her at the curb for a long time. Longer than a man who had been avoiding her for 4 years should have hugged her. His body shook once. He caught it. "Welcome to New York, Mama. Take me home, Kwabena. I want to see where you live." The house in Astoria was a 3-bedroom row house on a quiet street near Astoria Park. Brick. 2 stories. A small front yard with an iron fence. A back porch overlooking a narrow alley, and, beyond the rooftops, a sliver of the East River. It was a nice house, a real house, the kind of house Adjoa had dreamed of her son owning one day. She stood on the sidewalk and looked at it and felt something she rarely allowed herself to feel, pride that announced itself out loud. "You built this, Kwabena?" "We're renting, Mama. But yes, it's ours." Crystal was waiting inside. She stood in the living room in leggings and an oversized designer sweatshirt, her braids pulled into a high bun. She was beautiful. Even Adjoa, who was immune to beauty as a form of currency, could see that. Crystal's face was symmetrical. Her skin was flawless. Her body was maintained with the precision of someone who spent serious money on it. "Welcome. I'm Mama Adjoa," Crystal said. She smiled. She hugged her. The hug was quick, professional, the kind of hug you give to a coworker at a Christmas party. "Thank you, my daughter," Adjoa said. She looked around the house. The living room was decorated with modern furniture, a gray sectional, a glass coffee table, a 75-inch TV mounted on the wall. The kitchen was renovated, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, a wine rack with 14 bottles. The dining room had a table that seated 6 with upholstered chairs and a crystal chandelier. Upstairs, the master bedroom door was closed. Adjoa didn't see inside. The second bedroom was Crystal's office, a desk, a laptop, ring lights for video calls, racks of clothes she was photographing for her Instagram. The third bedroom, the smallest, had a twin bed, a nightstand, and a window that faced the alley. The walls were bare, no closet rod, just a hook on the back of the door. "This is your room, Mama," Kwabena said, setting her suitcase inside. Adjoa looked at the room. She looked at the twin bed. She looked at the bare walls and the alley view. She nodded. "It's fine, Kwabena. Thank you." It was not fine, but she had slept in worse. She had slept on a mat on a concrete floor in Accra for the first 10 years of her widowhood because she couldn't afford a bed and a school fee in the same month. A twin bed in Queens with a window was a luxury she had earned. She would not complain. The first week was polite. Crystal cooked dinner twice, grilled chicken and salad. She set 3 places at the dining table. She asked Adjoa about her flight, about Accra, about the weather in Ghana. And the conversation was pleasant and completely empty, the verbal equivalent of the quick hug at the door. By the second week, the table had 2 place settings. "Mama Adjoa, there's food in the fridge for you," Crystal said one evening as she plated lamb chops for herself and Kwabena. "I made extra rice yesterday. You can heat it up." Adjoa looked at the 2 plates on the table. Lamb chops, grilled asparagus, garlic bread, wine. She looked at the fridge. Inside, a Tupperware container of plain white rice from 2 days ago. "Of course, my daughter," she said. She heated the rice in the microwave. She ate it standing at the kitchen counter while Kwabena and Crystal ate lamb chops at the dining table 10 feet away. Kwabena did not look at her. He stared at his plate. And he cut his lamb chop into small pieces and chewed each one like it was made of glass. He knew. Adjoa could see it. He knew what was happening. He knew it was wrong. But he said nothing. Because Crystal had taught him. Over 4 years of closed doors and short conversations, and the slow, grinding mathematics of a marriage where one person holds all the power, that silence was the price of peace. And Kwabena paid it. Every night. By the 3rd week, Adjoa was no longer eating at the counter. Crystal had decided the kitchen was her space during dinner prep and asked Adjoa to give her room. Kwabena brought her a plate, a paper plate, not the ceramic plates they used. Paper. He brought it to her bedroom. Cold rice. Sometimes a piece of chicken from the night before. Sometimes nothing but rice and a glass of tap water. "I'm sorry, Mama," he whispered one night, setting the plate on her nightstand. "Crystal she's adjusting. Having someone else in the house is new for her." "I've been here for 3 weeks, Kwabena." "I know, Just give her time. How much time does a daughter-in-law need to set a third plate at the table? He didn't answer. He closed the door. By the 4th week, the bedroom door was locked from the outside. Not all day. Crystal unlocked it in the morning at 7, and locked it again at 9 p.m. She said it was because Adjoa wandered at night, and the creaking floors woke her up. Adjoa did not wander. She was 70 years old with aching knees. She went to the bathroom once at midnight. One time. And Crystal had turned it into a policy, a lock, on a 70-year-old woman's bedroom door, in her own son's house. Quabena installed the lock himself, with a screwdriver, on a Saturday afternoon. His hands shook while he did it, but he did it. Adjoa watched him from the twin bed. She said nothing. She had said everything she could say. The rest was up to him, and he had chosen. Now, if you're watching this and you want to scream, I understand. But hold on. Because what Crystal doesn't know, what Quabena doesn't know, what nobody in that house in Astoria knows, is about to change everything. And I need you to stay with me through the next part. Because the truth about Mama Adjoa is not what you think. And when it arrives, when it pulls up to that house in Queens in 12 black SUVs, you are going to understand why fate waited 9 months. If you want to see it happen, subscribe and hit that bell, because we're just getting started. And the cold porch started in November. New York in November is not Accra. November in New York is the knife's edge. The moment the city reminds you that winter is not a season, but a sentence. The wind comes off the river and carries needles. The sky is gray from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. The cold doesn't knock. It moves in. Crystal decided in the first week of November that Adjoa's evening meals would be served on the back porch. The house smells like her food, Crystal told Quabena. They were in the master bedroom. The door was closed, but the house was old and sound traveled through the heating vents like whispered confessions. Adjoa heard everything from her room above. She uses too much oil when she heats things up. The kitchen smells for hours. And honestly, Quabena, I'm showing houses to clients. I can't have my clothes smelling like that. Like what? You know what I mean. He knew. The word she wouldn't say was African. The food, the oil, the spices, the smell of a woman who had cooked over open flames in Makola Market for 30 years, a smell that lived in Adjoa's skin, in her clothes, in her presence, the smell of work, the smell of survival. To Crystal, it was contamination. She can eat on the porch, Crystal said. It's not cold yet. She'll be fine. It was 47 degrees the first night. Quabena brought the plate outside. Paper plate, cold rice, a small piece of chicken, the wing, the part Crystal didn't want. He set it on the porch step. He didn't look at his mother. Quabena. Yes, Mama. Look at me. He looked. His eyes were wet. His jaw was tight. And his hands, the same hands that had gripped her fingers at his father's funeral when he was 11 years old, hung at his sides like they didn't know what they were for anymore. How long are you going to let this woman treat me like an animal? Mama, it's temporary. She needs you to be a man, and you need to decide if you are one. He walked inside. The door closed. The lock didn't turn. The back porch didn't have a lock, but the door closing was its own kind of lock. Adjoa ate the cold rice. She ate the chicken wing. She ate it with her fingers because there was no fork on the plate. She ate it in 47-degree weather in a cotton house dress because nobody had offered her a coat. And she thought about what she was going to do, because Mama Adjoa was not what she seemed. And the fabric shop in Makola Market, the one she had worked at for 30 years, she didn't work there. She owned it. She owned 7 fabric shops in Makola Market. She owned 12 more across Accra, Kumasi, and Takoradi. She owned the building the original shop was in. She owned the building next to it. She owned a textile importing company that brought fabric from China, India, and Turkey into West Africa through the port of Tema. Adjoa Nyarko Frimpong, the woman eating cold rice on a porch in Queens, was the founder and majority shareholder of Niarco Textiles International, a company with 800 employees, distribution in 11 West African countries, and an annual revenue of $67 million. Her personal net worth, held in trusts, properties, and investment accounts managed by a team of 3 attorneys and a private wealth manager in Accra, was approximately $280 million. She had built it over 30 years, silently, methodically, the way she did everything, without announcement, without performance, without anyone knowing the full picture until she was ready to show them. Kwabena didn't know. He knew his mother had done well with the fabric business. He knew she owned the original shop. He thought the monthly money he sent her was what kept her comfortable. He had no idea that the $800 he sent every month was less than what she earned in interest every single day. She never told him. On purpose. She wanted him to build himself, the same way she had built herself, from nothing, with nothing, expecting nothing from anyone. And the $200 she pressed into his hand at the airport, she could have given him $200,000. But that would have built a different man, a softer man, a man who expected the world to cushion his falls. She wanted him hard. She wanted him hungry. She wanted him to know what it felt like to wash dishes at a restaurant in Queens at 3 in the morning and still wake up at 7 and do it again. Because that knowledge, the knowledge of the bottom, was the only foundation that lasted. But she also wanted to know who he married. She wanted to see Crystal's heart without the filter of wealth. She wanted to stand in that house as nobody, no money, no power, no leverage, and see what happened. So she came with one suitcase, one thin house dress, one pair of house slippers, and a 70-year-old body that looked like it had nothing and owned everything. 9 months. That was the timeline she had set. She told her attorney in Accra, a man named Kofi Mensah Bonsu, before she left. 9 months. If I call before then, something has gone wrong. If I don't call, let me finish the test. And after 9 months? Kofi had asked. After 9 months, bring everyone, bring everything, and make sure they see it coming. That was April. Now it was November. 7 months in. 2 months to go. The test was almost over, and Crystal had failed every single day. But the cold porch, the November porch, the December porch, the January porch, that was the part that broke something in Adjoa. Not her spirit. Her spirit was made of the same material as the concrete floor she had slept on in Accra. Nothing broke that. What broke was something smaller and more dangerous, her patience. Because eating cold rice in 14-degree weather while your son's wife eats steak inside is not a test anymore. It's a war. And Adjoa had never lost a war. December came. The temperature dropped. The rice got colder. The porch got darker. Crystal's meals got better. She had discovered a meal delivery service, premium cuts, organic vegetables, artisan bread, that arrived twice a week in a refrigerated box. She cooked every night, not because she loved cooking, because she loved the performance of cooking, the Instagram stories, the plated photos, the comments from followers who called her goals. Porterhouse steaks, lobster tails, truffle risotto, seared scallops, wine pairings she learned from YouTube videos. And the dining table was set every night like a magazine shoot, cloth napkins, candles, the good plates. And every night, Kwabena brought a paper plate to the back porch. Cold rice, sometimes a chicken wing, sometimes nothing but rice. Kwabena, Adjoa said one night in mid-December. It was 22 degrees. She could see her breath. Do you remember what I told you at the airport? When you left Ghana? He was standing in the doorway, half inside, half outside. The warm kitchen light behind him, the cold porch dark in front of him. You said go and build. I said go build. And when you are ready, come back for me. You never came back. I came to you. Mama, I came to you. And what did I find? A man who lets his wife lock his mother in a bedroom. A man who brings his mother scraps on a paper plate while his wife eats lobster at a table I am not allowed to sit at. A man who installed a lock on his own mother's door with his own hands. Kwabena's face crumpled. His hand gripped the doorframe. I'm handling it, Mama. I just need time. You've had 7 months. How much more time does your spine need? He went inside. The door closed. Adjoa looked at the paper plate. She picked it up. She walked to the edge of the porch, and she dumped the rice into the snow. She didn't eat that night, not because she was making a point, but because the rice was so cold it hurt her teeth, and because dignity, at some point, has to outweigh hunger. She went to bed. She heard the lock click from the outside at 9 p.m. Crystal's footsteps retreating, the master bedroom door closing, and the silence of a house where 3 people lived and none of them were free. She pulled her phone from inside her pillowcase, not the old Nokia that Crystal had seen her use. A different phone, a slim black smartphone, encrypted, untraceable. She dialed. Kofi. Mama Adjoa, how are you? Cold. A pause. Do you want to end the test early? She thought about it. 2 more months, January and February, the coldest months, the hardest months. No, I will finish what I started. But Kofi, when the time comes, I want all 12. All 12 vehicles. All 12. And I want them on the street at the same time. I want every neighbor to see. Yes, ma'am. And Kofi, the file on Crystal Morgan. Is it complete? It's been complete since August, ma'am. Good. Add the photographs. And the ones from the porch cameras. The cameras are recording as we speak. Every night. Every night? Every night since the first time your son brought you a plate on the porch. We have 112 recordings, date stamped, weather data included, temperature, wind chill, precipitation, all of it. Adjoa closed her eyes. 112 nights. Yes, ma'am. She hung up. She lay on the twin bed. She stared at the ceiling. 112 nights of cold rice on a porch. Recorded, documented. Every single one. She pulled the thin blanket to her chin. 2 more months, she whispered. Christmas came. Crystal decorated the house. A 7-foot tree in the living room. Lights on the front porch railing. The front porch where guests could see them. Wreaths, garlands, a nativity scene on the mantel. And the house looked like a Hallmark movie from the outside. On Christmas Day, Crystal made a feast. Turkey, ham, mac and cheese, candied yams, collard greens, cornbread, sweet potato pie. She invited friends, 3 couples from her real estate office and their children. The house was full. 12 adults, 5 children. Laughter, music. The smell of food so rich it reached the back porch through the cracks in the door. Adjoa was not at the table. She was not in the house. She was on the back porch, in a cotton house dress, in 26-degree weather, with a paper plate. On the plate, a turkey neck, a spoonful of rice, no greens, no mac and cheese, no pie, a turkey neck. On Christmas, one of the children, a little girl, maybe 6, wandered to the back door during the party. She pressed her face against the glass. As she saw Adjoa sitting on the porch step, eating a turkey neck in the cold. "Mommy," the girl said, pulling on her mother's sleeve. "There's a grandma outside. She's eating in the cold. Can she come in?" The mother looked through the glass. She looked at Crystal. Crystal smiled, tight, fast, and said, "That's Kwabena's mother. She prefers to eat outside. She likes the fresh air." The mother looked at Crystal. She looked at the glass. She looked at the 26-degree weather and the 70-year-old woman in a cotton house dress. She said nothing. She took her daughter's hand and walked back to the dining table. Adjoa heard the exchange through the glass. She heard the child's voice, clear, innocent, the only honest voice in that house. She heard Crystal's lie. She heard the mother's silence. And she added 3 names to the list of people who saw and said nothing. Kwabena found her on the porch at 9 p.m. The party was over. The guests were gone. Crystal was upstairs taking a bath. The house was warm and quiet and full of leftovers. He came outside with a coat. Not for himself. He was wearing one. For her. He draped it over her shoulders. "Mama, I'm sorry." She looked at the coat, the first warm thing anyone had offered her in 7 months. "Kwabena." "Yes, Mama. In 2 months, everything will change." "What do you mean?" "You will see." He looked at her. Something in her eyes. Something he had seen once before, when he was 11, when his father died. And his mother had looked at the landlord who came to collect rent the next day and said, "You will get your money when I decide you will get your money." And the landlord had backed away. Something in her eyes made him go very still. "Mama, what are you planning?" "I'm not planning, Kwabena. I'm finishing." He didn't ask again. He went inside. He left the coat. Adjoa pulled it tight. It was warm. It smelled like her son, his cologne, his soap, the faint scent of the restaurant kitchen where he worked. She buried her face in the collar and breathed. For one moment, one breath, she was back in Accra. Kwabena was 11. His father had just died. She was holding him on a mat on a concrete floor. He was crying. She was not. She was holding him together with her body because her words had run out. She opened her eyes. And she was on a porch in Queens. She was 70. Her son was inside. His wife was upstairs. And the cold was real. 2 more months. January was the cruelest. Single digits. Wind chill below 0 some nights. The rice froze on the plate before she could eat it. She stopped eating outside. She took the plate to her room instead, though Crystal complained about food smells in the bedroom. Adjoa spent January documenting. Not with the camera. Kofi's security cameras were handling that. With her memory. She cataloged every meal she was denied. Every night the lock clicked. Every time Crystal said she likes the fresh air. Every Sunday when Kwabena went to church and Crystal stayed home and didn't offer Adjoa a single word for 8 hours. She cataloged Kwabena too. His silences, his averted eyes. And the coat on Christmas night, the one act of defiance in 9 months, the way his hands shook every time he brought the paper plate. He was not evil. She knew that. He was weak. There is a difference. Evil enjoys the cruelty. Weakness endures it, and hates itself for enduring it, but does not stop it. She cataloged Crystal with the most precision. Crystal's Instagram posts, #blessed, #wifey, #queen of the house, photos of meals that Adjoa was never allowed to taste. Crystal's shopping bags, Nordstrom, Saks, Bloomingdale's, arriving twice a week while Adjoa wore the same 3 house dresses she had brought from Accra. Crystal's phone calls, loud, performative, full of laughter that evaporated the moment she hung up. Crystal Morgan was not a monster. She was something worse. She was ordinary cruelty dressed in designer clothes. And the kind of person who didn't see herself as cruel because she had never examined her own behavior long enough to see it. She had decided on the day Adjoa arrived that this old woman from Ghana was an inconvenience, a burden, a smell. And she had spent 9 months converting that decision into a system of paper plates, of locked doors, of cold porches, of turkey necks on Christmas, and the system was about to end. On February 1st, Adjoa made the call. "Kofi, it's time. How would you like it done?" Saturday, February 8th, 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 vehicles, full team, legal, financial, and personal security. And Kofi, I want the documentation printed. Every photograph, every temperature reading, every recording, bound, indexed. I want Crystal to hold it in her hands and feel the weight of 160 nights. It will be ready. And the property documents? The house? Yes. The deed transfer was completed in August. The house has been in your name since August 12th. Good. Shall I notify your son? No. He will find out when everyone else does. She hung up. She lay on the twin bed. She pulled the thin blanket to her chin. One more week. Saturday, February 8th. The temperature was 19 degrees, clear sky, no wind. The kind of cold that is honest. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. At 9:47 a.m., Mrs. Petrakis across the street looked out her kitchen window and saw the first black SUV turn onto the block, then the second, then the third. By the time the seventh one passed her house, she had her phone out. By the ninth, Mr. Okafor next door had come outside in his bathrobe. By the 12th, 12 identical black Cadillac Escalades, tinted windows, chrome wheels catching the February morning sun. The entire block was watching. They lined up in front of Kwabena's house, bumper to bumper, stretching from the corner to the fire hydrant and beyond. 12 vehicles, 24 doors, not one of them opening. The engines idled. The exhaust rose in white columns in the cold air. Inside the house, Crystal was in the kitchen making a smoothie. She heard engines. She looked out the front window. Kwabena? Kwabena. He was in the living room watching TV. He stood and walked to the window. What the? Why are there 12 black trucks outside our house? Kwabena looked. His face went white, not because he recognized the vehicles, and because he recognized the precision, the uniformity, the scale. This was not random. This was planned. This was someone who had the resources to put 12 identical vehicles on a street in Queens at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. His eyes went to the ceiling, to the room above, the room where his mother slept. "Mama," he whispered. The front door of the first Escalade opened. A man stepped out. Kofi Mensah Bonsu, 61 years old, tall, lean, dark brown skin with the burnished quality of a man who had spent 40 years in boardrooms across 3 continents. Gray overcoat over a charcoal 3-piece suit, leather portfolio under his arm, reading glasses in his breast pocket, silver watch, the unhurried walk of a man who bills by the hour and is worth every dollar. Behind him, from the other vehicles, 14 people emerged. Men and women, suits and overcoats, briefcases and folders. Some carried boxes of documents. 2 were clearly security, earpieces, broad builds, hands clasped at their waists. They assembled on the sidewalk in front of the house. 16 people total, standing in the 19-degree air like it was room temperature, waiting. Kofi walked to the front door. He rang the bell. Crystal opened it, smoothie in hand, leggings, oversized sweatshirt. Her face was a question mark. "Can I help you?" "Good morning. My name is Kofi Mensah Bonsu. I am lead counsel for Nyarko Textiles International. I am here to see Mama Adjoa." Crystal blinked. "Who?" "Adjoa Nyarko Frimpong, your mother-in-law." What does she have to do with—" Crystal looked past Kofi at the 16 people on the sidewalk, at the 12 SUVs, at Mr. Okafor in his bathrobe filming on his phone, at Mrs. Petrakis at her window. "May we come in?" Crystal stepped back because there was nothing else to do. Kofi entered. 4 people followed, 2 attorneys, a financial advisor, and a personal assistant carrying a large bound document. They stood in the living room. The same living room with the gray sectional and the 75-inch TV. Crystal's Instagram ring light was still set up in the corner. A scented candle burned on the coffee table. The remains of last night's dinner, filet mignon, were still on 2 ceramic plates on the dining table. 2 plates, not 3. Kofi noted it. His eyes moved to the dining table, counted the plates, and returned to Crystal's face. He said nothing. The count said everything. "Where is Mama Adjoa?" Kofi asked. "She's upstairs. In her room." Kwabena was standing in the hallway. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. He looked like a man watching his house burn from the inside. "The room is locked," Kwabena said quietly. Kofi turned to him. "Locked?" "From the outside." Kofi's jaw tightened. It was the only visible emotion he would show for the next hour. "Unlock it, please." Kwabena went upstairs. His footsteps were heavy. The lock clicked. The door opened. Mama Adjoa came downstairs slowly. She was wearing the same thin cotton house dress, the same house slippers. Her arms were bare. Her face was calm. Her eyes, the same eyes that had watched her husband die, that had sent her son to America, that had built a $280 million empire in silence, were fully awake. She entered the living room. Every person in a suit turned to face her. And they bowed, not deeply, but unmistakably. The nod of professionals in the presence of the person who signs the checks. Crystal's smoothie hit the floor. The glass didn't break. It bounced on the carpet and rolled, leaving a trail of green across the gray sectional. Kofi opened his portfolio. Mrs. Crystal Morgan Frimpong, I am going to share some information with you. I recommend you sit down. Crystal sat. Not because Kofi told her to, because her legs stopped working. Kofi placed the first document on the coffee table. Adjoa Nyarko Frimpong is the founder and sole controlling shareholder of Nyarko Textiles International, a West African textile importing and distribution company with operations in 11 countries. The company employs 800 people and generates annual revenue of approximately $67 million. Crystal's mouth opened. No sound came out. Mama Adjoa's personal net worth, as assessed by an independent valuation conducted in December 2024, is approximately $280 million. Kwabena sat down on the stairs. His legs had given out before Crystal's had. Furthermore, Kofi continued, opening the bound document the assistant had carried in, this property, the house at 3417 Crescent Street, Astoria, Queens, was purchased by a subsidiary of Nyarko Textiles International in June 2024. The deed was transferred from the previous owner to the Nyarko Family Trust on August 12, 2024. Your husband's name appears on no ownership document. Your name appears on no ownership document. This house belongs to Mama Adjoa. Crystal shook her head, fast, like she was trying to wake up. No, that's not. We've been paying rent. You have been paying rent to a property management company called Crescent Holdings, LLC. Crescent Holdings is a subsidiary of Nyarko Textiles International. Your rent payments have been deposited into a trust account managed by my firm. You have been paying rent to your mother-in-law for the past 18 months. Crystal pressed both hands against her face. Her designer nails dug into her own cheekbones. Kofi placed the bound document on the table. It was thick, over 300 pages. This document contains the complete record of Mama Adjoa's treatment in this household over the past 9 months. It includes 162 photographs taken by security cameras installed on the property, photographs of meals served on paper plates, meals eaten on the back porch in temperatures ranging from 47 degrees to 6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the locked bedroom door. Each photograph is time-stamped and cross-referenced with National Weather Service temperature data for Astoria, Queens. He opened the document to a marked page. A photograph. Mama Adjoa on the back porch. Paper plate. Cotton house dress. 14 degrees. The date stamp read December 19th, 2025. The weather data read temperature 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Precipitation none. Crystal looked at the photograph. She looked at the temperature. 2 degrees, she whispered. Wind chill, Kofi clarified. The actual temperature was 14. Your mother-in-law was sitting on an open porch at 14 degrees in a cotton house dress eating cold rice, while you, according to your own Instagram post from the same evening. He turned to another page. A screenshot. Crystal's Instagram story. A plate of seared duck breast with cherry reduction. The caption, date night at home with Bae #blessed. We're eating duck breast at the dining table. Crystal started crying. Not the tears of someone who felt sorry for what she had done. The tears of someone who had been caught. There is a difference. The first kind of tears come from the heart. The second kind come from the face. Adjoa knew the difference. She had been reading faces for 70 years. Kwabena was still on the stairs. His face was in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Kofi turned to him. "Mr. Frimpong." Kwabena looked up. His eyes were red. "Your mother asked me to include a personal statement in this record. She asked me to read it in your presence. May I?" Kwabena nodded. He couldn't speak. Kofi opened the document to the final page. He read, "My son, I sent you to America with $200 and a prayer. You were 27. You were brave. You were hungry. You were everything I raised you to be." Kofi's voice was measured, but the words were Adjoa's, and they carried her weight. "I did not tell you about the company because I wanted you to build yourself without a net. And you did. You worked hard. You earned your position. You became a man I was proud of. But somewhere between the airport in Accra and this house in Queens, you forgot something. You forgot that the woman who starved so you could eat is not a guest in your life. She is the foundation of it. And foundations do not eat on porches. Foundations do not sleep behind locked doors. Foundations do not wear cotton in 14-degree weather while another woman eats steak at the table I am not allowed to sit at." Kwabena made a sound. Not a word. Not a cry. A sound from somewhere deeper than his chest. The sound of a man hearing the truth about himself from the only person whose opinion has ever mattered. "I did not come here for money. I have more money than you will earn in 10 lifetimes. I came here for you. And what I found was a man I did not recognize. A man who chose a woman's comfort over his mother's dignity. A man who installed a lock on his own mother's door and convinced himself it was temporary." Kofi paused, and he read the final paragraph. "But I am your mother, and mothers do not stop loving their children because their children stop being brave. So here is what I leave you, Kwabena. Not my money, not my company, not my properties. I leave you a choice. You can stay in this house, my house, with this woman, under these conditions. Or you can come home. Come back to Accra. Come back to the woman who sent you into the world. And this time, come back as the man I raised. Not the man this marriage turned you into." Kofi closed the document. The room was silent. 16 people standing. 2 people sitting. One woman in a cotton house dress standing by the staircase with her hands folded and her chin level and her eyes, those 70-year-old eyes, seeing everything. Crystal looked at Adjoa. For the first time in 9 months, and she really looked at her. Not as a burden, not as a smell, not as an inconvenience, as a woman. A woman who had sat on a cold porch 162 times and never once complained, never once screamed, never once left. "Why?" Crystal whispered. "If you had all this money, if you owned this house, why did you stay? Why did you eat the scraps? Why did you let me do this?" Adjoa looked at her, long, steady. "Because I needed to see who you were, and I needed my son to see it too. But why didn't you just tell us? Because the truth about a person is not what they show you when they know you're watching. It's what they do when they believe you have nothing. You believed I had nothing, Crystal, and you showed me everything." Crystal's face collapsed. The performance was over. The Instagram filter was gone. What was left was a 29-year-old woman sitting on a gray sectional in a house she just learned she didn't own, married to a man she had systematically separated from his mother, watching the consequences of 162 nights arrive in a leather portfolio. Kwabena stood up from the stairs. He walked to his mother. He dropped to his knees. He took her hand. "Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every plate, every night. Every time I walked away when I should have stood up." Adjoa looked down at her son, on his knees, in front of 16 people, in front of his wife, in front of the truth. She touched his head, gently, the way she had touched it when he was 11, when his father died, when the world fell apart and she held it together with her body. "Get up, Kwabena. He looked up. Get up. Yeah, a man who kneels in regret is better than a man who stands in denial. But you've knelt long enough. Now stand and decide. He stood. He wiped his face. He looked at Crystal. He looked at his mother. I'm coming home, Mama. Adjoa nodded. One nod. Slow. The nod of a woman who has waited 9 months for 3 words and is not going to waste them by celebrating. Good. Kofi stepped forward. Regarding the property, Mama Adjoa has instructed that the house remain available to you, Mr. Frimpong, for a period of 90 days. After that, the Nyarko Family Trust will evaluate whether to retain or divest the property. Mrs. Morgan Frimpong may remain in the house during that period, but all trust-funded accounts, including the credit cards, the car lease, and the household expense account, will be frozen effective immediately. Crystal didn't react. She was beyond reaction. She sat on the sectional like a woman watching the tide go out and realizing that everything she thought was solid ground was actually sand. Kofi turned to Adjoa. Is there anything else, ma'am? Adjoa looked around the living room. The gray sectional, the glass coffee table, the 75-inch TV, the ring light in the corner, the scented candle, the 2 plates on the dining table. 2 plates. She walked to the dining room. She pulled out a chair, the chair she had never been allowed to sit in. She sat down. She folded her hands on the table. She looked at the 2 plates from last night's dinner. The filet mignon residue, the wine glass with a red ring at the bottom. And then she said something that made every person in that room understand who she was. Kofi, before we leave, I would like a meal, a proper meal, at this table, cooked in this kitchen, served on a real plate. She looked at Crystal. You are a good cook, Crystal. I know this because I have smelled your food through the glass for 9 months. I have smelled the garlic butter and the seared steak and the truffle and the rosemary. I have smelled it in the cold. I have smelled it through a locked door. I have smelled it on Christmas while I ate a turkey neck on the porch. Her voice did not shake. I would like one meal, at this table, before I leave this house, and I would like you to cook it. The room held its breath. 16 people in suits. Kwabena by the stairs. Crystal on the sectional. Crystal looked at Adjoa for a long time, and the tears were still on her face. The smoothie was still on the carpet. The Instagram ring light was still glowing in the corner, recording nothing, seen by no one. Then Crystal stood up. She wiped her face with both hands. She walked to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. She pulled out ingredients: steak, potatoes, garlic, butter, asparagus, a bottle of olive oil. She cooked. For 45 minutes, Crystal Morgan Frimpong cooked for her mother-in-law. She didn't speak. She didn't post. She didn't photograph. She just cooked. And for the first time in 9 months, the house smelled like food that was meant for everyone. She plated the steak, a ribeye, medium, rested properly, roasted garlic, mashed potatoes, grilled asparagus with lemon. She carried the plate to the dining table. She set it in front of Adjoa, on a ceramic plate. And with a real fork, a real knife, a cloth napkin, a glass of water with ice. She stood beside the table, hands at her sides. I'm sorry, Mama Adjoa. Adjoa looked at the plate. She looked at Crystal. She looked at the ceramic, the fork, the knife, the cloth napkin, all the things that had been within arm's reach for 9 months and denied every single night. She picked up the fork. She cut a piece of steak. She put it in her mouth. She chewed, slowly. Her eyes closed. It's good, she said. Crystal broke. Not the catching tears with your hands kind, the dropping to the floor kind. She sank to her knees beside Adjoa's chair and pressed her forehead against the old woman's arm and sobbed the way people sob when they realize, not in their heads but in their bodies, the full weight of what they've done. Adjoa ate the steak, and she ate the potatoes. She ate the asparagus. She ate every bite, at a table, on a real plate, with a fork and a knife and a cloth napkin. And when she was done, she set the fork down. She placed her hand on Crystal's head, which was still pressed against her arm. "You asked me why I stayed, why I ate the scraps, why I sat in the cold." Crystal looked up. Mascara destroyed, face swollen. "I stayed because leaving would have been easy, and easy would have taught no one anything. I needed you to feel the distance between who you are and who you could be. That distance? It's one plate, one chair at the table, one door left unlocked. That's all it ever was." She stood. She straightened the same thin cotton house dress she had been wearing for 9 months. She pushed the chair in. "I'm going home now, to Accra. If you want to know me, the real me, not the woman on the porch, you know where to find me." She walked to the front door. Kofi held it open. The 12 SUVs were still idling on the street. The neighbors were still watching. Mr. Okafor was still in his bathrobe. Mrs. Petrakis had called her sister. Adjoa stepped onto the front porch. The real front porch. The one with the lights that Crystal had hung for Christmas. The one the guests saw. She stood there for a moment. She looked at the street, at the SUVs, at the exhaust rising in the cold February air. Then she did something nobody expected. She turned around. She looked at Kwabena, who was standing in the doorway. "Kwabena." "Yes, Mama." "Bring my suitcase." He ran upstairs. He came back 30 seconds later with the same suitcase she had arrived with 9 months ago. One suitcase. One house dress on her body. One pair of slippers. She took the handle. She walked down the front steps. A man in a dark suit opened the door of the first Escalade. She climbed in. The leather seat was warm. The heat was on. A bottle of water and a folded cashmere blanket sat on the seat beside her. She pulled the blanket over her legs. The door closed. One by one, the SUVs pulled away. 12 vehicles, 24 doors, the chrome wheels catching the morning sun, the engines humming in unison. The street cleared, vehicle by vehicle, until the block was quiet again. Mr. Okafor went back inside. Mrs. Petrakis put down her phone. The February wind blew through the empty street. Inside the house, Crystal sat at the dining table. In front of her, the empty plate where Adjoa's steak had been, the fork placed neatly across the plate, and the cloth napkin folded beside it. One plate, one chair, one meal, that's all it would have taken. From the very beginning, one plate at the table, one unlocked door, one real meal instead of cold rice on a paper plate. But Crystal had chosen differently. 162 times she had chosen differently. And now she was sitting in a house she didn't own, looking at a plate she had served too late, wondering if the woman in the Escalade would ever let her close enough to apologize properly. Kwabena stood in the doorway, coat on, keys in hand. "Where are you going?" Crystal asked. "Home," he said. He didn't mean Queens. If Kwabena had set a third plate at the table on the first night, if Crystal had offered a coat instead of a porch, and if either of them had seen the woman sitting in the cold and recognized that she was not a burden but a blessing, none of this would have happened the way it did. But they didn't. For 9 months, they didn't. And fate, patient, quiet, meticulous fate, recorded every night. 162 plates, 162 temperatures, 162 photographs. And when the time was right, it sent 12 black SUVs down a quiet street in Queens and read the receipt out loud. Because fate doesn't forget a single cold night. And it never forgives a paper plate when the real ones were right there in the cabinet. If you want to see who fate visits next, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because in these stories, the ones who serve scraps in the cold always lose the house. And the ones who eat those scraps in silence, they always owned it the whole time, every single time.
Años exactamente, bueno, no exactamente, ¿no? Un grupo de soñadores en La Paz decidió fundar algo que trascendería generaciones. El glorioso Club Bolívar. No imaginaron que... Oye, me he esforzado al hacer el discurso. ¿Qué ponen ZZ, chat? Basta, me he esforzado, se los juro que me he esforzado, bro, basta. Por favor, me he esforzado en el discurso, respétenme un poquito, chat. Bueno, igual lo voy a leer, me la chupan, la verdad. Chat, nefastos. Son unos envidiosos, ¿saben? Son unos envidiosos. ¿En qué me quedé? No imaginaron que ese nombre se convertiría en un sinónimo de grandeza, lucha y de orgullo nacional. 101 años después, Bolívar no es solo un club. Es un sentimiento que se hereda, que se sufre y se celebra. Últimamente sufrimos mucho por Robato, ¿no? Es el latido de miles de hinchas que en cada victoria y en cada caída nunca abandonan, ¿verdad? Nomás. Porque ser celeste no es una elección, es una forma de vivir. Muy bien, qué lindo, un aplauso. Bravo, bravo. Muchachos, tremendo discurso. Buenas noches, Edito, ¿cómo estás? Por lo menos ponte tu chompita, pues, un busito para leer el discurso. A ver, cállate, Gabo, ¿vos quieres ser baneado? Este discurso lo he hecho en mi cama, pensando en lo que es ser bolivarista, la verdad. Un aplauso, por favor, y con ayuda también del gran ChatGPT. Un aplauso para ChatGPT. Ah, ¿cuál era la finalización de un ratito? Dice... que estos 101 años sean solo el comienzo de muchas más llenos de alegría. Felicidades, Academia. Felicidades, Bolívar. ¡Bravo! Aplausos para ChatGPT, muchachos. Para vos no, dice. Buenas noches, muchachos, ¿cómo están? Gracias por estar aquí, perdón por prender tan tarde. La verdad estaba viendo mi serie, estaba viendo el regreso de Justin Bieber. Bueno, toda la tarde me vi fútbol, hasta vi el partido del Tigre, vi el partido de River, vi el partido de Oriente, las declaraciones de Martins, tremendo lo de Martins, bebé, le tiró palo a Villegas, pero bien tirado. Huevada, en su cama lo hizo todo pajeado pensando en el... No, ¿qué dice este Arielito? Oye, ¿quiénes vamos, no? Mi sobrino de quién redacta mejor, dile eso a ChatGPT, yo no he redactado. ¿Qué me estás molestando a mí? Felicidades. Qué basado. Pues la verdad nomás. ¿Qué quieren que les diga? A ver, ¿qué les puedo decir, muchachos? Yo no publiqué nada en mi página, la verdad no hice nada estos días. Han sido momentos difíciles. Bien triste, ¿no? Mentira. Pero no, muchachos, bueno. Quiero felicitar a todos los que son bolivaristas y hoy en día más que nunca, ¿no? Que es difícil ser bolivarista en el sentido de todo el contexto que estamos pasando con el técnico. Pero si lo ven por el otro lado también hay que sentirnos orgullosos porque hemos llegado a estos 101 años. Creo que como la institución mejor parada, tanto económicamente, futbolísticamente y dirigencialmente diría, pero no, creo que no, ahí nos falta, ¿no? Ese eslabón para poder ser una institución sólida. Y como ayer creo que lo decía Dardo Gómez en su publicación en el Cholet, que Dios mío, ¿de dónde cagan tanta plata, bebés? Más fuegos pirotécnicos que en el aniversario de La Paz, no mames. Tremendo, felicidades a los del Cholet y a ver si pasan pues algunos moneys. No mentira. Que dijo que el dirigente tiene que estar siempre al lado del hincha. Y eso es mucha verdad. Y no es por darle palo a Claure, porque él tendrá sus funciones, las cosas que tienen que hacer. Pero creo que por esa parte que estoy... Uy, ¿qué? No, todavía no va a arrancar la fiesta, Tucán, tranquilo. y por esa parte creo que está bien, ¿no? Está bien. Y bueno, se vienen unas futuras elecciones donde el principal candidato es Dardo Gómez a seguir manejando lo que es este club tan bonito que es Bolívar, ¿no? Por detrás, obviamente, yo creo que tiene que haber gente que lo asesore. Espera, ¿mi gatita se ha hecho pipí? No, ya, más bien. Me ha asustado, chicos, la verdad, me ha asustado. Ya saben ustedes, rayada está mi gatita últimamente, ¿no? No, ¿qué dice este Eddie Pox? Y bueno, muchachos, nos espera, creo, un futuro grandioso. Yo lo dije, creo que esta es una oportunidad ya con el Stadium de una vez establecernos como un club de fútbol, pero serio, y fuera de ser autosostenible, que se proyecte a más, ¿me entiendes? No estancarnos en solo ser un club boliviano, sino ya empezar a soñar con, no sé, a ver, por ejemplo, la venta de butacas en el estadio, venta de marketing, merchandising, que se vaya ampliando más las sociedades, ¿me entienden? O sea, yo creo que si una cabeza maneja bien todo eso, creo que podemos despegar, ¿me entiendes? Y no estar ahí creando leyes de mierda con el gobierno, pidiendo perdón para que nos perdonen los impuestos, ¿no? De los gatos, ¿no? Entonces, creo que, o ser un club que está a punto de desaparecer, como Wilstermann, que desapareció de la liga, pero está a punto de desaparecer, pero absolutamente de todo el fútbol. O ser clubes que le están mangueando el auspicio a la UTB y chupándosela al presidente de la federación por subsistir. Entonces, creo que Bolívar es muy grande y tiene, creo que, trascender. Eso es lo que nos falta, trascender, dar ese pasito para trascender y lograr los objetivos que siempre hemos querido, ya sea una Copa Sudamericana o una Copa Libertadores, ¿no? Y siempre tiene que ir de la mano. Estos últimos años, creo que es la verdad, se han ido alejando a las generaciones bolivaristas, al hincha común, al hincha fanático, a todos los tipos de hinchas se han ido alejando del club por justamente el mal trabajo que se ha ido realizando estos últimos años en Bolívar. ¿Qué decía Valdivia? Creo que dijo que dejó un club autosostenible. O sea, sí, no vamos a decir que no. Económicamente creo que se dejó un club autosostenible. A ver, Solís, no pidas Gartic. Ya les he dicho qué cosa de Gartic. Hoy día es aniversario del club. Déjame hablar a ver de mi club, Solís. Igual en el grupo de WhatsApp, no Tucán, jugaremos Gartic, no quiero dibujar huevadas, déjame, no voy a jugar Gartic, ya les he dicho, si quieren dibujar, agarren un cuadernito y empiezan a dibujar sus huevadas, no me vengan a molestar a mí con su Gartic. Saludos Reyisita, ¿cómo estás? ¿Todo bien? Gartic, temática Bolívar, no, métanse su Gartic por el poto, ya les he dicho. Y bueno muchachos, ¿en qué estaba? Es que me enerva muchachos, cada vez Gartic, basta, no quiero jugar Gartic, vayan a jugar Gartic con sus minas. Goclingo, huevadas hablas, ya, espera, ¿qué hables, Ignacio Loza, Auri? Y bueno muchachos, creo que sí, yo me quedo con eso. Este martes tenemos un partido muy importante en lo económico. Para mí, muy importante para ver qué está el club de cara a este año, porque creo que es indispensable ganarle a ese equipo. En Copa Libertadores, obviamente por los 3 puntos y más, pero pensando a futuro, creo que es muy importante que se vea buen fútbol, ¿no? Y que la gente ya esté un poquito más tranquila con el funcionamiento del equipo. Ayer contra Bebé, bueno, el día sábado contra Bebé, se jugó un buen partido, no digo que un malo partido, creo que empezaron a aparecer personas, o bueno, jugadores que no estaban apareciendo, como es el Papu Velázquez y muchos más, ¿no? Entonces, interesante. Y bueno, apareció Cauterucho, que en el partido de Libertadores no había aparecido ni de sombra. Parece que Cauterucho solo le mete goles a equipos como ABB. Y preocupa un poquito eso, ¿no? Hoy ganó el Tigre, está puntero con nosotros. Nacional Potosí también está compartiendo la punta con nosotros y muchos más que vienen bien entonándose en lo que es este torneo, ¿no? Que empezó retardísimo y creo que nos va a pesar no solo a nosotros, sino a los demás equipos que están participando en copas internacionales, ya sea Blooming el caso, ¿no? Y otros más. Mete gol equipo chicos como Dorni, pero Dorni ni jugó. ¿Qué dicen chicos? ¿Qué dicen? La era Robato es la peor de todos los tiempos, bebé, tomando en cuenta el centenario que es una vez en la vida. Sí, es la peor. De los últimos 10 años, ¿se podría decir que lo de Robato es lo peor que nos pudo pasar? A ver, piensen. Es que con lo que me dice el técnico de... A ver, ustedes pónganse a pensar, si tu técnico te dice que el objetivo era solo clasificar a Libertadores y que no estaba obligado a ser campeón, puta, ahí me la bajó mal, amigos, sinceramente, me la bajó mal. Podía aceptarle todas sus huevadas y todo, pero cuando dijo eso, es como que hizo sentir me hizo sentir un club más del montón, ¿me entiendes? Un Nacional Potosí, una Aurora, no sé, otros equipos bien X, así me hizo sentir, la verdad. Por eso yo vuelvo a repetir, yo voy a hablar de lo que veo en la cancha, y este martes, si es que Bolívar gana, se va a aplaudir, y si es que Bolívar pierde, bueno, también se va a criticar algunas cosas, y si han fallado en algunas cosas, igual vamos a criticarlas, vamos a observarlas y vamos a dar nuestro criterio. Pero fuera de eso, Robato no puede venir a achicar el club, ¿me entiendes? O sea, creo que hemos tenido el parámetro y la vara de estos últimos años, bueno, desde que yo nací, desde que voy a la cancha, creo que el parámetro